Hey, Gotham Geeker here, and it's time for another review. Let's talk about the upcoming action thriller Boy Kills World, starring Bill Skarsgård from Rami Productions and Roadside Attractions. The thrilling, vibrant, and extremely violent film is directed by Moritz Moore in his feature directorial debut. Boy Kills World, man, it's stylish, it's unhinged, it's a post-apocalyptic bloody revenge story with loads of impressive fight sequences, comedic moments, and adrenaline blood-soaked comic book influences. There's tons of video game influence, anime influences, comic book influences. The film releases April 26th in the US with an R rating. Skarsgård stars as Boy. Targeted for death by a cruel totalitarian regime, a boy left orphaned, deaf, and voiceless is rescued by a mysterious shaman who trains him to become the ultimate killing machine. And boy, oh boy, does he. So the action-packed thriller features a solid cast of actors, including Bill Skarsgård, Jessica Rothe, Michelle Dockery, Famke Janssen, Sharlto Copley, Brett Gelman, Isaiah Mustafa, and Andrew Koji. Overall, the film is unhinged, it's stylish, it's utterly gory with impressive and exciting fighting styles. I'm going to say, however, the story is kind of all over the place. It's unoriginal. It's full of action movie tropes, and there's a lot of plot holes. There's a lot of things that are unexplained, glanced over plot holes that kind of just never really get acknowledged. But you really need to turn your brain off for this one. Ultimately, I feel like you have to look past the story and just really enjoy the ass kicking and the foolery. There's a lot of like wonky, hilarious, absolutely ridiculous moments, but the blood and gore, woo, man, there's some crazy moments in this movie. So, like I said, it can get a bit ridiculous but ultimately the action, it's flashy, it's bloody, it's absolutely worthwhile on the big screen. I highly recommend to watch this on a big screen. I really had a lot of fun with this movie. I think it's worth a watch just for the action and performances alone. I mean, you got Bill Skarsgård, Andrew Koji, my man from The Raid. So Boys Kills World is directed by Moritz Moore. It's from a script by Tyler Burton Smith, who wrote Kung Fury 2 Child's Play, and Aren Remmers from Snowflake. It's loaded with a lot of comic book style blood and violence. Like I said, there's a lot of video game influences in here. It definitely channels the hyperkinetic thrill of classic video games in a visually dazzling nonstop battle royale. Oh man, there's a lot of ass kicking here. Like I said, it's inspired like graphic novels. It's very like over the top, eccentric, like comic character personalities, blood and gore, really cool camera pans and exaggerated performances, and like really villainy dialogue. So it's super stylish and vibrant. It's funny, it's full of surprises and twists. The fight scenes are super dynamic and animated and actually feel really authentic and realistic. There's a lot of mouth-dropping sequences, like a memorable kitchen fight. Woo, man, that kitchen scene. It involves a shredding with a cheese grater, and there's also an anvil to the face. So there's going to be tons of awesome moments in this movie. There are some genuinely funny moments, I will say, but not all of the comedic moments hit as well as, say, the balance in other heavily stylized action flicks like Kingsman and Kick-Ass. So I definitely can see where they were going with this. I kind of wish it toned up on the series a little more in certain aspects, especially among the horrors of a dystopian future and the murder of innocent people. I'll get to that in a little bit. The villains also felt very comic book inspired, kind of like Kingsman villains. I'm not going to say this is as original because, it's very Matthew Vaughn and Millar World inspired, been there, done that. But I do think it worked for what they were trying to achieve. I really did like the balance of comedy and action. The character designs are super over the top. They kind of reminded me of like Elizabeth Banks' character Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games, or even President Snow, in terms of like their vibrant like eccentricity and their crazy demeanor and outfits. But I'll get back to the villains in a little bit. So Skarsgård stars as Boy. He's the film's protagonist after his mother and sister are targeted and killed at the culling. He miraculously escapes death with the help of a mysterious shaman. So he's subjected to a punishment of a regime of martial arts training and a drug-induced ritual. So his rescuer trains him, but it's some trauma here, man. So he's becoming an instrument of revenge. The boy plots revenge after his family was murdered by Hilda Van Der Koy, which is Janssen, and the deranged matriarch of a corrupt post-apocalyptic dynasty, which left the boy orphaned, deaf, and voiceless. So he's fighting, and he can't hear nothing. He can't talk. He lives in complete isolation, except for the wisecracking ghost of his little sister and the shaman who's tutoring him relentlessly in the art of killing. I think these moments really play into like the lost child that's still in there. He still interacts with his sister as if she's still there. They have some playful moments and like a lot of memories and a lot of the things that they enjoyed together as kids and like inside jokes. So after meeting with some of Hollywood's top young actors, the filmmakers selected Bill Skarsgård. Man, he wowed audiences with his performances in John Wick, especially his depiction of the horror clown as Pennywise, the Stephen King terrifying It. So as boy, Skarsgård he's seriously on fire right now. He's been showing us a lot of range with his like diverse, outrageous performances. And this one, he has said it's one of the better scripts that he's read. And I really think he did show us a lot with this film. It's super entertaining. It's a throwaway. There's a unique tone and story, and it's funny at times, but it will surprise you with a nuance and emotional journey. And I really think that he's spot on with that. The movie is told through Boy's eyes, which really brings home some of the tragic elements. It briefly touches on his trauma and it shows us some of the really cool moments, like his vigorous training with the shaman, because man, oh man, that gets intense and he gets his ass whooped. I think Skarsgård gave a fantastic and believable performance, and he really worked well with what he was given with this movie. He showed a lot of range and devotion. He was fit, he was prepared. His ability to communicate without words was executed really well, and you feel like you can understand exactly what he's thinking at all times through his movement and his facial expression. So he did a pretty good job playing mute and deaf. And he made a dramatic transformation for the role. He lost 20 pounds. He really built like a lean physique. He also stated that he had to learn to fight from the ground up in a very short amount of time. And he looked very believable. He watched a lot of martial arts films and a lot of movies to really prepare. And I like that he showed so much dedication to this. Like I said, he's on fire. He's been killing every performance. And I'm actually a little more excited now for his upcoming role in The Crow. If you know me, The Crow is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm pretty reluctant on a remake. Typically reluctant on some remakes, but I don't know. We'll see. He kind of got me hooked with this. So the boy is mute and deaf. He gives himself an inner voice inspired by his favorite childhood video game. The voice is narrated none other by H. John Benjamin Bob's Burgers and Archer.
Mantra. I am an instrument.
And he provides the voice for Boy's inner thoughts, and it really makes it that much funnier. It's kind of like his addition makes the narration much more interesting, and it really ties together with the whole like video game aesthetic. And the boy comes up with a three-step process to inflict his revenge. So step one, establish inner voice. Step two, get stronger. And three, join a team. So that's the resistance. And man, they're going to make the Van Der Koys pay for what they've done. So we're going to get to the shaman. He's played ruthlessly by Yayan Ruhian, my boy from The Raid, which is one of my favorite action movies of all time. And he was totally another selling point. Once I saw he was in this movie, I'm like, I'm actually going to watch this. He's one of the world's foremost practitioners of the Indonesian fighting form. I hope I'm saying this right, Pencastilat. So he came to prominence internationally in the hyper-violent action thriller The Raid. And man, he's gone on to appear in other films, including Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and he himself is a highly regarded fight choreographer. So of course, Moritz and stunt choreographer David are they're martial arts geeks, so it was only fitting to have Yayan on board. And every scene this man is in, it's top notch, man, bone breaking, and it's incredible. And then now there's the resistance, the team, which includes Andrew Koji and Isaiah Mustafa. So during his quest to destroy the Van Der Koy's empire, Boy joins forces with two seasoned resistance fighters, Benny, which is Isaiah Mustafa, and Basho, Andrew Koji. So they've tried many times to take them down, and they failed. So Koji and Mustafa partnered up before the film to kind of build on the backstories for their characters. So this was super interesting. Koji, who previously played leading roles in the martial arts Extravaganza Warrior, one of my favorite series, and Snake Eyes, and he found a couple of unconventional references for his character. So I thought this was super funny. He was actually inspired by Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy and the work of a Greek philosopher, Theophratus. Sebastian really wanted to like be a leader, and he can be a bit overzealous. He's very protective of his friends.
I did do that.
He killed over 100 men.
Slight exaggeration.
With his bare hands.
Definitely not true.
So Isaiah and Andrew really went back and forth with ideas, and they ran them all by the director, Moritz, and he was 100% on board to all their ideas. So that was really cool that they kind of really got into touch with their characters. So Benny is a highly experienced military tactician. and the sole survivor of the resistance cell, according to Mustafa, who was an NFL wide receiver before launching his acting career. And he's pretty showing, his chops, especially when it comes to action. So Benny doesn't talk much, and it's kind of funny. And, his words are hard to make out, except his beard is too long, and he can, you can only read lips, but that kind of makes sense because the movie's really from Boy's point of view. But what makes it even funnier, it's pretty hilarious because you can't tell if that's how he really sounds, and maybe just Basho is used to it, or if it's only because the boy can't read his lips. So his character was pretty funny. And Basho, on the other hand, he's a street kid and he had to learn everything himself. Koji kind of said he's like a wounded animal and he's going to be a hero, but he got his knee destroyed. So now, he really wants to take the Van Der Koys down and he feels like he doesn't have a purpose. So the resistance team really get together and try to take him down. The character dynamic is great. They work really well together. I like all the, different characteristics of the characters and how they all play well together. There's some pretty funny scenes where, the boy doesn't actually understand anything they're saying, so can't really do the plan. But there's even more trippy, eccentric characters and very Hunger Games-esque performances from the villains. In an unnamed post-apocalyptic dynasty, the tyrannical Van Der Koy clan rule with brutal efficiency. It's led by Hilda, who is played by the glamorous Famke Janssen, who we know as Jean Grey from X-Men. So the Van Der Koy family, they're sick, they're terrifying. They exact punishment on anyone who, looks the wrong way, says the wrong thing. Their heavily armed military hunts down enemies for the culling, which is a brutal public ritual, which helpless citizens are slaughtered in a televised extravaganza. The Van Der Koys are run by the powerful female villains, and they wield great influence in this world. Hilda Van Der Koy, like I said, played by Famke Janssen, she runs her empire with an iron fist. She maintains control of the population through manipulation, violence, and terror, including the annual culling, where people, if they're displeased her, they're mercilessly slaughtered on live television. And Famke makes for a great villain. She kind of gives an extended Phoenix Four scream as she has a lot of crazy stares, and her depiction of a crazed madwoman is nuts. She's domineering, cruel, and sadistic, and Famke really plays deep into this story of revenge. And she has admitted that initially she found the films to be a little bit shocking and violent, but reading the script again, she kind of said it was never gratuitous. And she says that the story, was really about the family trying to control every aspect of society through fear and force. And that kind of seems familiar to the world we live in today. So she kind of took it, a little too far, a little totalitarian over there. But she makes for a great villain. And her sister, Michelle Dockery, Melanie, who plays Melanie, she's from Downton Abbey, The Gentleman. She's almost as frightening.
Who controls the narrative?
Melanie is really the one in control. She's the face and the voice of the family. She serves as a somewhat PR person and a mastermind of the culling. Her character was definitely inspired by the Hunger Games. And she, she'll betray anyone that gets in her way. She'll do anything to stay on top. And she gets up nice and close to the camera. Some really close camera time. That scene is epic. Then we get to Brett Gelman. We know him from Stranger Things. He plays Gideon. So he's the flashy, pompous brother. He controls the streets and the goons, but he has other plans. He actually devises some quite exquisite plans, and he actually made for a really interesting character. Aside from the zany performances, the movie had some spectacular costume choices. Not only the villains, but Jessica Rothe, who played the badass head of security assassin June 27. Absolutely loved her character. She had a very Kill Bill aesthetic, though, I will say. But, man, she was amazing. But one thing really made no sense with her costume. She had a pretty cool Daft Punk looking helmet. It looked really cool, but it conveniently displayed words. So this was annoying because she didn't know her brother was deaf or even alive. So that was weirdly convenient. But she was still maybe my favorite character, and Jessica really put in work into this character. She took Muay Thai boxing. Her weapon of choice was tomahawk. She did a lot of training. And honestly, I might make this a cosplay. All right, so we're gonna get to the culling television scene. This was exciting and hilarious, one of the best scenes, but man, it was morbid.
And lights.
Shit.
The Frosty Puffs childhood flashback serial. The mascots are killing everyone. And it really shows how much power the Van Der Koys really have. The irony is they took a fan, and she was killed during the cereal presentation. Man, that was great. If you remember her from earlier in the scene when he almost had a flirty moment, but she was a BI. The final scene reveals were shocking and foreseeable, though I will say Hilda was hiding in the bunker ever since her disappearance, so I knew the shaman had to be of importance. I knew that she would be that June 27th would be revealed as his sister early on. It just made a lot of sense. They really never showed her get shot. They never showed her face. But the bigger twist and reveal was really the mother being Hilda. That was surprising. That blew me away. I did not expect that. The shaman was the one who orchestrated everything, man. The whole story of revenge. Everyone ended up being puppets. Although the mother's still the villain, I really like how they set this up. The team up with him and his sister was fantastic. One of my favorite scenes, the two of them up against the shaman now, and he kind of has to take things back into order. But what didn't work for me, like I mentioned, the sister helmet was weird convenience. Some other things still didn't really make sense to me. After him and his sister defeat the shaman, what, they just left? Isn't the grandmother still alive? Who's kind of controlling things now? How they just let it end like that? I didn't like how the majority of the oppressed people captured or murdered were people of color. I kind of thought a lot of them were. I felt like the movie was a tad bit long. The third act could have progressed a little faster. But overall, man, I think it's a totally great time. Skarsgård's on fire right now. Like I said, I actually may go watch The Crow. He's a man of action. Martial arts, bare knuckle combat, state-of-the-art weaponry. Like I said, there's even a cheese grater coming into play. There's a lot of awesome, like, defying action scenes, a lot of carnage, awesome set pieces. The set design is awesome. Man, I think they really nailed it in terms of like the martial arts. And I think the results speak for itself. I still highly recommend watching this film in theaters for the action. Like I said, like the plot, you can kind of get over the story a little bit and just sit back and relax. The addition of Skarsgård voice, like I mentioned, the Archer voice, that was a great addition to the film, and I honestly think this change worked. For Boy's inner monologue, there was great decapitation, bone cracking, and this is a promising start for more. I definitely think he's on to something, and I say check it out. April 26th in theaters, rated R. Lots of blood.
Damn it.